Who's ready to become a carny? Follow me. Okay, so I just watched Nightmare Alley. Sorry that I paused on the name like that. It's such a weird name, and especially because the title doesn't really come up that often, but I guess that's for the best. Anyway, I went into this film without seeing any trailers. I knew nothing other than it was a Guillermo Del Toro movie, which, yes. And it starred Bradley Cooper and like an entire lineup of everybody who's been anybody. Rooney Mara, Cate Blanchett. I'm gonna try to put the accents on their names correctly. Paul Anderson, Toni Collette, what? Willem Dafoe, what? Ron Perlman, what? Holt McCallany. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I'm bad with the two C's in a row. Richard Jenkins, I love him. David Strathairn. I could tell you movies he's been in, but never knew that name. Mary Steenburgen, who hasn't aged in the last 40 years, revealing my age a little bit. Clifton Collins Jr., big fan. Tim Blake Nelson, another big fan. And there's more people that I've left off. Did I mention it's directed by Guillermo Del Toro? I think I did. So, something that jumps out at me right off the bat. For those of you who have seen There Will Be Blood, I love it when a movie starts in silence. And this movie begins totally silent. Well, our main character is totally silent. There is background noise, but he doesn't open his mouth for a good while. And immediately I was like, I'm going to love this. Again, I knew nothing about the movie, and I kind of recommend that everybody go in as ignorant as possible just because it was like an awakening. It was almost like a game. I'll explain what I'm talking about. So, one, to get back to the character not really speaking up front, in the first 30 minutes, I believe that I counted, he might have opened his mouth 7 or 8 times. It's definitely less than 20. So, you don't hear him speak a lot in the beginning. And I think that that sets up his transformation. And by his, I am referring to the main character, Stan Carlisle, played by Bradley Cooper. He starts out totally quiet. He's not shy. He's just a very easy to please guy. Like the first time that he opens his mouth is to tell somebody that he doesn't have an issue with them because they had never done anything to him. I won't give any backstory to that because we're going to try to stay as spoiler free as possible. But you will also notice by the end of the movie, you've totally forgotten the silent country kid that we met because we've gotten to know him and we've gotten to see the changes that have taken place over these 3 acts. Act one, I like to nickname as learning the con. Because this whole movie, if I had to summarize it in a sentence, I would say the movie is a long con. And throughout it, they go out of their way to teach us how the con works. So they let us in on what's happening in the first act. And much like Stan, we are learning from old carnies the tricks of the trade. And you can tell how excited he is when he finally realizes, I'm good at this. I can do something. Okay. Now, it's not necessarily conning, but if you watched any trailers, you know that he is a medium, or at least presents himself as one. And I thought that the set pieces were wonderful in the initial carnival. Willem Dafoe's character, whose name escapes me at the moment, his character is Clem Hotley. Um, I loved him. I wasn't sure if he was going to be our villain. He certainly gives us. Um, he paints the footsteps, assuming you can paint footsteps. He paints the footsteps that are leading us to the end of the film. And you're aware of it as he's discussing it, if you're in tune. Because I certainly knew while I was watching him break down what will happen, I knew that that's how the movie was going to end. They make that foreshadowing so thick, it is just a shadow. Um, and having said that, as he is learning the tricks of his trade that he will use throughout the rest of the film, he gets a very clear warning. And, for something that is a con, the warning that he got might as well have come from a fortune teller because they told him exactly how it was going to go. And again, it's not just one place that the information is coming from. So as the audience, we hear it and we understand they are telling you how this is going to end. And I thought that they did a fantastic job walking us through all the beats. Did the story move a little slow? There were a few moments. I will say towards the end of the third act, it started to drag a little bit for me. I didn't fully understand exactly where they were going. I do think that the payoff was great. I think the last moments of the movie we all saw coming, but we didn't see it just like that. Like you got in your car and you knew you were going to hit traffic on your way to work. What you didn't realize is that it was going to be standstill traffic that would take up your entire day, 8 hours of traffic. You never made it to work, if that makes any sense. Act two, I like to call believing. That will make more sense once you have seen the movie. But now we're watching the student now practicing everything that he's learned. And slowly the cracks start to show in the warnings that everyone had given him prior. In Act 3, I never came up with a name for it, so it's just the end of the movie, and you can be dazzled by how everything comes together. I will say this, it's a Guillermo Del Toro movie. I went in with expectations of grand, fantastical monsters, um, and I will say he got away from that in this movie. And maybe I tried to put him in a box that he didn't deserve to be put in. Because Pacific Rim was more about, I mean, they did have kaiju, but I don't know what Crimson Tide was. I haven't seen that. I think that's the only movie of his I haven't seen. We're not about a world full of monsters. There are certainly plenty of things in jars that are disturbing to look at. One particular, Enoch, comes back again and again. The costume designs are what we would expect. They were amazing. I loved the scenery that he showed, and there's snowfall all over in different scenes, but the way that he captures it and it dances around, I don't know if he did that intentionally or if that was just nature, but nature deserves a co-directing credit if that's the case. Um, I thought that Cate Blanchett was amazing. Anytime she was on the screen, I just wanted to hold my breath, and I don't know why. I'm glad there wasn't a sex scene, so they didn't like make it something dirty. They just kept it like a classy. She's beautiful. She's a trained thespian. Enjoy her on screen, and I did. Um, I think that certain phrases like the walls closing in, there are a lot of little quips and remarks that are hinting towards what's to come, and it just feels very urgent. By the time that the third act hits, it feels like, okay, well, this crescendo is going to come with a gunshot or something. I think I had read somewhere that it was a little gory, the film, and I don't think Nightmare Alley is that gory at all. I think that they had it where it needed to be. I think if you've seen Pan's Labyrinth and watched that dude beat the guy's face in with a gun butt, nothing in this movie should really bother you. I want to talk about things I don't like for a second. Um, I think other than it slowing down a little bit, um, there's not much to like. Like at first, I didn't like all the God references in the film, but they didn't really end up going anywhere. It's not a religious film. You'll see a sign that says Jesus saves, and certain letters go missing. And I spent a good 10 minutes every time that there was a moment trying to figure out, okay, how does that Jesus saves play into everything? What's Jesus going to do? Who is the devil here? Without ruining anything, I just want to say, like, it's not a big story about God. It's more about father son. And I do want to point out that lie detector scene that is shown in the official trailer, by far one of the most cringe-worthy moments I have been through watching a movie in some time. Because that entire time, I think I was doing this while watching it, like, just don't answer the question, please. Anyway, I said all that to say this. I think everyone who is in the mood for a good thriller, because it's been a moment since we had Knives Out as the last thriller I can think of that really just kind of like, but I think go see Spider-Man. But before that, go see Nightmare Alley. And if you want to do it in the opposite direction, I think that that's cool too. And I just want to end on this. Isn't it about time that Guillermo Del Toro finally made In the Mountains of Madness?